remember two spirit beings on my left, two spirit beings on my right. I knew them from somewhere, but I didn't know why or where or who they were. But there was this feeling of recognition. And as that happened, I remember connecting to what felt like this tapestry of endless connection, endless love. And there's overpowering unconditional love that started saying,
Chris Lippincott, welcome to my podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
And not only are you my first medium on my podcast, but you are also my first medium to talk to in real life. So I'm really excited for this conversation.
Oh, good. There'll be lots more. It'll be quite a journey.
So could you start us off by introducing us to what a medium is? What do you do?
Sure. A medium is a person who essentially is able to connect with people who have transitioned into the non-physical world, i.e. people who have quote unquote died, their physical bodies have died, but their consciousness remains alive because we don't die. Our consciousness is always alive, and that's been shown countless times. But a medium is essentially allowing their vibration to rise high enough that they're open to the vibrations and communications from people in spirit who are trying to relay their information, their healing, their love to those who remain behind in the physical. And it's not so much anything about, being, this guru from the Hindu Kush, because if anything, I mean, my background, was based in, agnostic materialism. I grew up as an agnostic. I, grew up in Wall Street. I was like the most material. I was kind of like Eben Alexander, Mr. Materialist. And then, amazing things happened. And next thing I know, 180 degrees, the opposite. So yeah, I've gone from the frying pan into the fire.
Right. Okay, cool. So you did touch on that you were a finance guy on Wall Street. So could you give us a little bit more on your background? What was your childhood like? And then what led you onto Wall Street and then out of Wall Street?
Yeah, great question. As a child, much the way many children are, I was, very much in contact with energy, with beings that I didn't know were spirit at the time, because I was always talking to people that only I could see. They were all around me, and I could have full-on conversations with them, but I was wondering why nobody else could see them. But I thought, hey, well, I'm just some kid who's got some active imagination. I'm going with it. This is lots of fun. And it got a little weird when at nighttime I would hear voices in my bedroom. Of course, I was the only child, so there were no siblings to play pranks on me. My parents are at the other end of the house. We're in rural Connecticut, where you can hear a pin drop. There's nothing going on. So that freaked me out. Thought monsters were coming by to, come by and, take me away to their lair, where I'd feel like hands on my back as I'm lying on my stomach trying to go to sleep. So I'd freak out and pull the sheets over my head. It's like, go away, go away, go away. Or I'd feel energy around me and I didn't know what it was. I'd freak out with that. So as a child, in the daytime, I thought everything was great and I'd connect to the energy. At nighttime, I'd freak out because it was, the Hollywood ghost story. I was like, oh, I can't, So over the years, eventually I just kept on trying to push it down and suppress it to the point where eventually I just made it go away. Didn't want to play with the quote unquote childhood, imagination. So for a bunch of decades, I just ignored it completely, even though in the back of my mind, I could still kind of sense something was going on. But I said, nah, that's just child play. So then I went to, after college, I said, okay, well, I got to go, make my living. Let's go where everybody else is going. Let's go into Wall Street. Let's become an analyst. Let's use all that mind. And so I went there and, it was just uber, complex and stressful. And, I was there for, a bunch of decades. And, eventually I wound up taking it out of my family because I got so stressed out. And I was like, okay, well, I got to do something about this. I got to chill out. I got to find a way to relax. And I stumbled on, to me, that what was a foreign concept, meditation. I'm like, wait a second, meditation? Don't you have to be, up in the Himalayas to learn meditation. It was all foreign to me. But eventually I ran across this audio track that was really calm, relaxing, didn't have any agenda. Because remember, I was very, I don't want any of this, stuff that was filled with agenda in my mind. But I just kept on listening to it every morning before work, and I got so hooked on it that I was doing that every day for about 12 months. And it was at the end of that 12-month period listening to this meditation. Of course, I didn't quite realize what I was doing, but Spirit apparently did, because it was at the end of that 12-month period that all of a sudden I had that spiritual awakening, which we can get into later if you want. But that's kind of when all of a sudden the doors reopened, the portal reopened, and then it was just kind of like, okay, I'm in a different realm. I'm going in a different direction. The old way doesn't work anymore. So that's kind of when things shifted.
Wow. So what was the spiritual awakening like?
Yeah, it was clearly unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. I was, in my man cave. Every guy's got to have his man cave. It was one weekend, and I'm in the meditation, going deeper and deeper and deeper, just really enjoying it. And sitting in my armchairs, going, this is great, for about 30 minutes, and then next thing I know, I'm kind of having this out of body experience where I'm sort of transported into. It was a combination, sort of like above the clouds, outer space, somewhere out there. And I just remember two spirit beings on my left, two spirit beings on my right. I knew them from somewhere, but I didn't know why or where or who they were. But there was this feeling of recognition, but I couldn't place them. And the spirit person all the way over to my right-hand side was bigger than everybody else, and he just shot this beam of energy right through my chest, out through my back, which totally shocked me, because it told me, I'm like, wait a second, I'm not dreaming. Because at one point I was like, wait a second, this is a dream. But when that happened, I'm like, damn, I can feel this. What's going on? And as that happened, that's when it kind of like kicked up a notch, where I was like sent even farther into this, outer space dimension area. And as that happened, I remember connecting to what felt like this tapestry of endless connection, endless love. I was like the thread of a tapestry that just went on forever. It had no beginning, it had no end, and it just kept on going. And I was just one of the infinite number of threads. So there's definitely the connection. And then suddenly I started getting this feeling of overwhelming, overpowering, unconditional love that I remember feeling. I was like loved just for being. I was accepted just for my sheer existence, which I couldn't fathom. And there's overpowering, unconditional love that started saying, you're perfect. You're perfect. And I remember shaking my head going, no. You don't know what I've done in my life. There's no way in God's green earth I'm perfect. I can't be. No. I remember rejecting that concept. But it just kept coming and coming. You're perfect. I love you. You're unconditional love. And it's like the word love that we use in the human language is kind of like the 1% of the iceberg that you can see floating on the surface of the water. Mm-hmm. This unconditional love was the other 99% that we never get to experience. It was way beyond anything I had known. I couldn't even describe it. And eventually I came out, sat there for 15 minutes, struggling to comprehend what had just happened, ran to my desk, wrote everything down. And then soon after, all of a sudden, I started feeling the same feelings I did when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I felt those energy blankets. I started hearing voices again. I started sensing people around me. But this time, it wasn't like it was a scary ghost story. It was kind of like, there are other me's around. There are other people like me. There are other people around, and I get it, and they're not scary. And it started coming to me that it was more like, okay, well, this isn't for me, is it? This is for everybody else. It's kind of like all of a sudden I'm like the relay station. I'm kind of like the telephone booth. I'm just kind of the guy that allows these people to talk to those people. I'm the intermediary. Mm-hmm. AKA the medium. So I was like, oh wow, I get it.
Wow, that just clicked what the name medium is called, why is it called medium? Okay, you're in the middle, you're the middleman.
Exactly,
Whoa.
100%. It's like, a medium will raise their vibration to a level that's high enough that they can start to connect with spirit, whereas spirit lowers their vibration low enough that the medium can connect with spirit. So the medium is between the high vibration of spirit and the lower vibration of, a typical human that hasn't raised their vibration yet. So it's hence you're in the middle.
Mm. And how did you start to go about raising your vibration? I mean, maybe because after your experience, it kind of just opened up for you again. Like all of your abilities that you had when you were a child came back now. But how do regular people who maybe weren't seeing ghosts as a child, how do they begin to connect to the spirit world and raise their vibration?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say go back to your inner child, because it dawned on me that I went right back to my childhood state. All that childhood vibration, that innocence, that acceptance, that love of everything around me, that creativity that exists in all children. That's the innocence, that's the love, that's the purity, that's the pure essence that allows spirit to, first off, connect with children, but also to connect with people who are higher vibration. Because think of the number of times that you've got young children, 5, 6 years old, who are saying they're, talking to their make-believe playmates, right? Well, the parents go, "Oh, no, you got a wonderful imagination." No, they're literally in connection with spirit because they're so high vibration, so loving of everything, so believing of everything. They haven't been told no yet. I mean, they're still believing in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, all the fantastical make-believe things that are out there. They believe it. That's their creativity, and that's the innocence and love they have of everything around them. That's why they're so open, because they haven't had this ego structure placed over them where they are not allowed to think a certain way. And if you want to allow your vibrations to rise, go back to that inner child that's inside you. Allow that vibration to rise. Start becoming loving and accepting and giving loving kindness to those around you. Because we're also caught up in the everyday world that we miss sight of what's actually important. If we just sit back and relax and we start to think, well, gosh, what is important? Sending love to somebody else. And it doesn't have to be, some overwhelming love. It can just be random acts of kindness. I mean, when was the last time you actually went out and helped somebody that you didn't even know, or just gave them a smile? Maybe you go out and you pick up the newspaper for a next door neighbor, or you drop your spare change at somebody, who is, not doing so well, or maybe they were asking for food. You got scrap food, no skin off your nose, give it to them.
Right. Okay, that's a beautiful answer. So, raising your vibration is about having a service mind and connecting to yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
100%. You hit the nail on the head. It's all about service. And when people think about service, they're like, "Oh, okay, well, I'm going to put in my hour a week or hour a month of doing my soup kitchen." Well, that is almost like an obligation. It's got to be a love of service. You have to love serving other people just for the sheer love of it, not because you're expecting anything in return. You don't want you want to do it in an anonymous way. It's like, what can you do to help somebody else? If you can love helping somebody else, like look at all the people who are in any kind of service industry, whether that they're in healthcare or they're in counseling, they're doing that, or even teaching. They're doing that for the love of the service. They're not expecting any huge reward from it, but they just get incredible rewards just from helping other people. That's vibration.
And I'm sure you get to feel that immense love every day whenever you're connecting people to their past loved ones who have died. And what is that like? What is it like getting to connect people to people who they miss?
That's another great question. And you're right. It is a wonderful feeling to receive the energy that's coming from spirit directed at their loved ones, because what spirit's trying to do is they're trying to bring their healing, bring their transformative love to their loved ones. And as their instrument, as spirit's instrument, I kind of get that, a little bit of that residual healing myself, because the
Mhm.
energy's flowing through me. And it's just this most beautiful, warm, loving feeling. You can feel spirit's energy. You can feel their unconditional, unbiased, pure love that's flowing through them. Whether they're coming through to say, "I'm sorry, I wasn't that great a person when I was in the physical. I know I could have done better. I know I should have been around you more. I know I, should have told you I loved you more," or endless list of things, or they're coming through to say, I am still here. I watch you every day. I love you all the time. You are so important to me. We are bonded together. The things they come through and say are just absolutely stunning. I mean, I can remember a couple of readings I had that had me in tears. I was like so bowled over. It was amazing.
What does that process look like? Do they talk to you audibly? Do you hear them? Do you see things? What does it look like?
Yeah, it's different for most communications, but they kind of fall into general categories, and it all depends on the communicator. If a person was very visual, let's say you're a very visual person in the physical, and you transition, still means you're going to be very visual. So odds are you're going to be communicating the same way you did when you were in the physical. You're going to be communicating with visual clues, visual evidence. So in that regards, I'll start getting lots of scenery, imagery, movies, remote viewings, lots of clairvoyance, because that's the way the spirit communicator is trying to connect with me, giving me information that I'll know and recognize through images that I pass on to the sitter. Other times, a person might be, a great communicator in the physical. They're still a great communicator in spirit, so they'll come through definitely through claircognizance, where they'll give me just like a data download of information, or maybe they wore their emotions on their sleeves. Maybe they were just really open with how they felt. So they'll give me a lot of clear sentience, and I'll get their feelings, and I'll know their personalities in a second. In fact, most communicators, the way they show up in the very beginning is they'll let me know their personality, their character traits, and that's one of the most immediate things that identifies them. All of a sudden, I'll start taking on their personality, take on their character traits. Sometimes they'll have me do their mannerisms, where they'll overshadow my body, and I'm like not even realizing I'm doing certain mannerisms. And all of a sudden, I start taking on their persona, and the sitter goes, "Yes, yes, yes," and they link with, because they're seeing their loved one coming through in me, and all of the spirit communicators evidence is like starting to flow through, whether it's personality, character traits, hobbies, shared memories. Those are powerful. Like it's like the shared memories are like some of the most emotional things, and can unite two people, whether it's the most innate thing like a rocking chair, where somebody's like, okay, well, yeah, this grandfather, I used to sit on his lap every single day in his favorite rocking chair, and all of a sudden the spirit communicator starts talking about the rocking chair. Boom, that's power.
Do you only talk to people who have passed on, or do you also talk to angels or spirit guides or negative entities as well?
Interesting question. When I'm of service to spirit, it's the communicators who have passed on to their loved ones. Those are the ones that I'm typically connecting with. For my own purpose, I'll connect with my spirit guides. I also do connect with my spirit guides when I go into trance. I'll do trance readings for people, and I'll let my spirit guides talk through me, and they'll wind up talking to the recipient of the trance reading. So that's pretty cool. I don't talk to angels, although I wish I did. And as far as negative entities go, I focus only on positive energy. So I set the intention to never connect with negative energy, because it's just, nothing that I want to deal with, and I don't really feel there's much negative energy that's even, existent. It's only a shade of the positive energy. Is it as bad as we are here in the physical plane? We've got some pretty bad actors here in this physical plane. We don't need anything worse.
Right.
Or is it like varying degrees of, higher vibration above that?
Okay, wow, that's amazing. And you talk to your spirit guides. So, how do people talk to their own spirit guides? And is it about, like you said, you mentioned intention. So, if you have the intention to connect with light, you will connect with light. And if you have the connection to connect with dark, you will connect with dark. So, those two questions there, sorry.
Yeah, as far as your last one, it is all about the intention. If you set the intention that all you want to do is to connect with love and connect to higher vibration and to all that is good for all concerned, that's the intention you set. That's the free will you set. And the spirit can never interfere with your free will. You always have to invite it. So whatever you invite into your life, that's what you're going to receive, and that's where the intention comes. So a lot of people say, well, don't I have to, set prayers or set protection? No, the only protection you have to do is set your intention. Once you set that intention, then it is. That's the way. It's universal law. Spirit cannot interfere with our free will beyond that which we allow them, to work with us. In fact, even spirit guides can't do much with us unless we're inviting them in. If we are inviting them in, then they'll gladly work with us. But, otherwise they'll be out in the periphery, kind of nudging us and pinching us and doing things in the background. That's about it.
So, how do you connect to your own spirit guides, and what would you recommend for other people to connect to theirs?
Right. Okay. As far as connecting with spirit guides, always know that your spirit guides are with you. They're always around you. They're always working with you. You always have at least one, if not many more, that are connecting with you. Think of it like a small orchestra. You've got like a director, or an orchestra leader, whatever they're called, conductor. That's the main go-to guide. Then he's got all of his side guides. There are around 8 or 9 guides with him that are also with you, but you're going to always be in contact with that one main guide. That one main guide is always with you, and if you're seeking to connect with your guide, just know that guy wants to connect with you. But as the saying goes, the teacher will appear when the student is ready. So it may take a while for you to actually get that interaction. It may take you 12 months, 18 months of steady, dedicated focus to even get some kind of inkling that the guide's going to show up. Whether you're meditating every single day with the intention of opening yourself to spirit, that's typically kind of what you're going to get, is around that 12 to 18 month period. And only then will you get like the smallest thing. I can remember the first time I was asking for my spirit guides. I said, can you please, give me a name? And I remember the first time they came through, I got like Frank and Judy, and I got so pissed off because I was like, Frank and Judy, what? That's just a regular name. Come on, give me something better. Oh no, so, but that's what I got, and it was kind of like they only could give me what I could handle because I wasn't quite ready for anything else. So they kind of gave me the commonplace name that at least it wasn't like almost like a serial number. Like, okay, I'm guide number 123. That's what you got to know me by. Okay.
So your spirit guides' names are Frank and Judy?
Well, they were then. They've since changed their name, but at the time that was the only way I knew them. I'm like, okay. I mean, they were saying some pretty cool things, but when I got their names in the beginning, I was very disappointed. I was expecting some long Egyptian multi-syllable name, but when I got that, I was really disappointed.
How did you know that it's them you're hearing? How do you separate their voice from your own?
Yes, excellent question. And that is a very common question: is how can you tell the difference between your own imagination and spirit guides when they come through? The way you'll know is that number one, the information that drops in is coming in out of the blue, totally separate from any stream of thought that you were having at the time. So let's say you were thinking about, rollerblading through a park, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, without even missing a beat, you're thinking about, okay, I've got to raise my vibration by sitting next to that tree. What? If it's such a radical departure from what your stream of consciousness was a split second ago, you know that's coming in from another source. More often than not, your spirit guide who's trying to kind of drip feed you little pieces of information to act on. And oftentimes you'll get these feelings of kind of like, your gut reaction, your gut sense of like all of a sudden you get this weird feeling of I should be doing something. I should be doing XYZ. I should be doing that. But you don't know why. That's your spirit guide dropping the little bits of information, but it's so subtle when it comes in. We always ignore it because our ego mind is in such control of what we want to do. It's loud, it's screaming, it's controlling, that more often than not we completely ignore it, and we're like, and it gets lost in the noise. So that's why meditation is so important. Is meditation helps you to lower that loud screaming monkey mind, your ego mind, and it kind of keeps that noise to a dull roar as opposed to a loud scream. So when you're in your meditation, everything goes nice and quiet. Over time, takes practice, but eventually it gets nice and quiet, and you start to allow the sounds that are around you to start to become a little bit more forceful, a little bit more in the front. You can start to become aware of them a little bit more. Right?
So you talked about this conductor, the spirit. There's one main spirit guide, and he's with you your entire life, or she. Is it with you for multiple lives?
Yes, good question. You do travel with your main guide over multiple lives, and as what's very interesting is, there have been a lot of automatic writings that have come through, over the last several hundred years, and these automatic writings of spirit people that have come through as they write indicate that when they return back to the spirit world, they return back to their guide, and they suddenly recognize their guide. They're like, oh yeah, we've been together in that life, and that life, and that life, and that life. And so we're coming to this awareness that the spirit guide has been traveling with us multiple lifetimes. It's exactly the same thing as we in spirit will travel in soul groups over multiple lifetimes. We're just like the reference I use, it's always like we're a group of traveling actors, and we're all traveling in this small band, and we're going to different theaters around the world, and we're playing different roles in different theaters. So like one theater I might be the father, in another theater I might be the brother, in another theater I might be the distant cousin, whatever. Right? We're all playing different roles, but we're all traveling in our little groups.
Whoa, that's so cool. So my mom in this lifetime could have been my sister in my last lifetime.
Yeah, or maybe the baker. Yeah, who knows? It could be anybody, and that's what's so wild, because in our soul groups, we'll travel in groups of anywhere from 10 to 50, or it depends on what works for that group, and we travel through multiple lifetimes, usually sticking together. Sometimes an individual spirit may go off to a different group based on what is good for them, what because it's always the ultimate goal is what generates the highest spiritual growth. So
Mm.
the soul group will move together in tandem to try to help each other spiritually grow, which is why we'll take on different roles to help each other learn what we need to learn in those different lifetimes. And that's why we're all interconnected. 6 degrees of separation is only the beginning.
And do we switch? Let's say, do we switch with our spirit guide? So can we be our spirit guide if they reincarnate, or do they not
No.
reincarnate?
No, that's kind of the debate. There are two aspects of that. Number one, once a spirit guide has become a spirit guide, their role of reincarnation, their purpose for reincarnation, has ended.
Okay.
Because we'll have many hundreds, if not thousands, of lives in the physical to try to learn all these specific lessons. Once we've kind of gone through all that and we've grown to the point where reincarnating no longer serves us, then we're going to stay in a spiritual state where we then want to go on and see how can we serve in a different way. And more often than not, those who want to do that will take on their experiences in the physical and become a spirit guide. They literally go through training, and there are multiple levels of spirit guides. And spirit guides will grow spiritually to the same degree we grow spiritually. So it's in their vested interest to have us grow spiritually. So as we grow, they grow.
Wow, that is insane. Oh my goodness. So let's say the spirit guides of Hitler, they weren't so up there? They weren't so spiritual? Or?
They were, but that and a lot of people bring up Hitler as gosh, here's a spirit that really messed things up. Well, yeah, he messed things up, but you could also say that perhaps he's got not only does he got a lot of things to learn, but he's also learning it in a very severe way, because as you go through your life review on the other side, the life review is not just some kind of movie. You're literally experiencing the recipient's pain that you caused them. So put yourself in the soul of Hitler. He had to go through and experience the pain and suffering of all those people that he caused to receive pain and suffering. So he's not feeling too comfortable as a result. But the spirit guide, and that's the other thing. In the spirit world, there is no judgment. There is neither good, there is or bad. It's all I want to call it sort of like a blank analysis, if you will, of okay, how could you have done better? Where could you have improved on your life? Because there's always perfect love. There is always constant love, no matter how bad a person may be in our view, in our human judgment. Spirit always has perfect and unconditional love and acceptance of everybody, no matter what they've ever done.
Okay, so it's more of like an objective view
Yes.
with love and not so
Yes.
emotional. Okay.
Yeah. There's no, excuse me. There's no human egotistical opinion that's tied in emotion and hatred, because that's human. That we're talking about objective, unconditional love from spirit that has no egotistical ties. It's all about perfect acceptance and how can we improve? How can we help? How can we serve?
You mentioned humans' emotions and our ego. And I can expect, or I would expect, that you received a lot of different reactions from the people in your life whenever they discovered that you went from this Wall Street finance guy to a medium talking to spirits. So, how did the people around you react?
Yeah, it was a very slow uptake, I'll tell you. Even my wife was a little aghast at what was happening. She kind of looked at me like I had three heads. So when I was starting, it was kind of like I was coming out of the closet or something. Because I had to kind of I felt like I was in the beginning kind of tiptoeing, and weaving this minefield of, okay, what are other people going to say? Okay, are they going to look at me? Am I crazy? Because I thought I was crazy. I remember coming out going, well, there are only two kind of people that can talk to spirit, either the incredible gurus or the crazy people. And I know I'm not a guru, so, oh my God, I'm crazy. So I
Yeah.
thought I was crazy, and I thought I was going all the deep end, and I didn't know what to make of it. And it took me a long time to really get comfortable with it, get it, to the point where I could accept, what was happening, because I was still so based in my rational mind that I had trouble fully accepting it. And there are even times today where I'm still got to pinch myself and go, really? Wow, that's amazing.
So what was the process like of getting out of your rational mind?
Oh, yeah, it took a while. It took a lot of camaraderie with like-minded people who understood what I was going through because they had already gone through it. It took a lot of support through mentors who were helping me, teachers who were helping me. It took a lot of practice, practice readings, practice connections, and understanding, what it meant, why I was brought to this situation in the first place. Why was I here? Why was I like this? Because I can remember early on after my spiritual awakening, I remember looking up in the sky one day. I don't know why I was looking up at the sky, but that was kind of the typical thing to do, right? I remember looking up and going, hey, I'm just some regular guy, so why me? And I remember before even finishing the question, the answer had already arrived. Because you're a regular guy. And I sat there and thought about it. I'm like, wow, that makes so much sense. You're trying to get through the rest of the world from a regular guy. So your message will be accepted. Oh, you guys are pretty smart. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So do you think that as a child, spirit was trying to lead you to your soul purpose as this? And then so you kind of went away from your soul purpose for many decades, and coming back, not only was it harder for you because you weren't a child, but you had to deal with the opinions of others, the opinions of yourself, because you're not this innocent
Right.
person anymore. Now you have ego to deal with. Now you have limiting beliefs. So I can imagine that it was a struggle to have to take off all of your limiting beliefs that you built up.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, you knocked the cover off the ball. That it was all the limiting beliefs and all the ego layers that had built up over the decades prior, that I had to strip away, because we grow up having an identity of who we think we are. We think we're this meat suit. We think we're this person. We think we have all these responsibilities. We think we're an identity of, John Doe, Jane Doe. We've got all these things that we think we do, when in fact, we are none of the above. We are just pure energy states. And this is where you can get into quantum physics. And this is kind of what helped me bridge the gap between the material world and the non-material world. Is quantum physics actually proves all this, is that we are nothing but pure energy. 99.99999% of everything in existence is energy. And you can take that to the example of the atom. Let's look at the carbon atom. You take the nucleus of the carbon atom, blow it up to the size of a golf ball. The distance between that golf ball sized nucleus and its electron would be 2 miles away. Everything in between is empty space. 99.9% of everything in existence is empty space. Energy. It's filled with energy.
Okay.
So we are energy. So every time we think we're touching something, we're actually not touching anything. It's actually the electron repulsion, because it's like two magnets, the same side of two magnets. You'll never get those two magnets to touch. It's physically impossible. It's 10 to the minus 8 energy or some power or whatever it is. You can't get them ever to touch. They'll never touch. So you'll never touch, and we're always energy. And as physics has proven, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change form. So when the physical body dies, that energy, that consciousness that we are, cannot be destroyed. It just changes vibration state. It's like water. Water can be really slow, low vibration, low oscillation. It'll be a chunk of ice, solid, kind of like us.
Right.
Heat up that vibration, raise the oscillation, raise the vibration, it melts into a different state, water. Heat it up even further, it goes into steam. Heat it up even further, it goes into plasma. Heat it up even further, it'll go into a non-physical state. So there are all these different states, but the energy remains the same, just in a different state.
So because energy vibrates at a certain frequency, that can change its form. So it can be matter like us, it can be hard, or like air.
Yeah, energy is just nothing but a state of being. We as consciousness are just a state of being. We're spirit trapped in a material body. So as Wayne Dyer is well known to have said, we are spirits having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience.
Right.
It's all in the perspective.
And that makes sense. And you kind of, your experience in the meditation, your out of body experience, kind of helped you to see like, oh, whoa, like this isn't real. This isn't who I am. And yeah, so that was kind of your awakening. And was that a catalyst for you becoming and stepping into your soul plan?
Yeah, because beforehand, I was going down a pretty, I don't want to say dark path, but I was going down a pretty miserable life. It's like, yeah, sure, I was making money, but was I happy? I was miserable. I was taking it out on everybody around me, right? I was just like, what's the point of, having a decent life if you're, taking out, you're angry and you're frustrated and you're stressed out and, you're the worst possible you could be, right? So this was kind of like an earth-shattering change in the way I existed, because all of a sudden it was a night and day shift. That it was like spirit coming upside me and giving me a slap upside the head and saying, "Wake up, kid! You gotta change your ways." I'm like, okay. And it really moved me in a completely different direction. And the feeling that I got was so dramatic. It was so far beyond me that it made me feel that I knew it wasn't just for me. I knew it had to be given out to others because it was coming from a driver of love. The whole premise was love and giving and service, and it was like, okay, I'm not used to this, but I'll go with it. And that's where it picked up steam, and it's never turned back since.
So if people want to connect or even reconnect to the psychic abilities they had as a child or have never been able to tap into, what would be some concrete advice you would give them to begin that journey?
Well, always realize that we always have these psychic abilities that are innate with us right now, because these quote unquote sixth senses, the psychic senses, the non-physical senses have always been there. They're just dormant in the hind brain, the top of the brainstem, because we've always had them ever since, prehistoric man. That's what we depended on before the written word, before we could communicate. We depended on these non-physical senses. We could communicate with each other. It's the way animals still connect with each other and communicate, and they'll use those six senses. That's how they detect danger. It's how we detect danger. We still have that sense. We just don't call it that. Say, for example, like the gut instinct. Like we'll get an instinct like we should be doing something, or we feel something, or we'll walk up to somebody and we'll suddenly have this feeling about them and go, I don't know if I like them too much. I got a weird vibe coming off them. Well, that's our non-physical sense, and we use it all the time. We just don't call it anything or realize it or understand it. It's kind of like use it or lose it. If we use it, then it'll start to get back into actuation, if you will, materialization. will actually manifest it much more. But because our frontal brain has been, dominating for, hundreds of thousands of years, we haven't needed the innate psychic abilities that lie just beneath the surface. For some, it's a little bit closer to the surface, so it's a little bit easier to use. Some say, oh yeah, I've got these psychic senses and it's really easy for me to use. Great. That's because, for them, it's closer to the surface. Also, maybe it's cultural, it's family, maybe it hasn't been taboo. Maybe they readily talk about it and they're like, oh yeah, sure. That's great. Really encourage you to use it. Other families are like, oh no, that's bad. You can't talk like that. That's evil. Well, so it's all on our belief systems and our culture, or religion, and that has a big part in it. So if people want to connect with that innate ability that's always there, start using very basic psychic exercises, and there's a whole list of psychic exercises that you can start to do. They're all over my website, and you can just start to practice those every day. And you can just do it by yourself, you can do it with friends, and the more you practice it and the more you allow, the more you trust what you're getting, because that's kind of the two phrases I'd say are probably the most important: trust and allow. Trust that spirit is going to give you what it needs to give you, and that what you're receiving is from spirit and it is full of love, and allow them to give it to you.
Mm.
So if you're trusting and opening yourself and you're allowing them to give to you, then the flow begins. And just allow yourself to get into that state of flow, because we're always in this ego mind, logical left brain, analytical mind that wants to control everything. It doesn't want to let go. It feels threatened if, it's not in control. That's the way our ego minds work. It feels very threatened. It's very insecure.
Yeah, does it want to feel safe or protected?
Yes. It every day it's, you could get into psychology of this whole thing. But our ego mind feels threatened. Our ego mind always wants to feel safe. Our ego mind is designed to try to keep us safe and keep our identity. We were talking about our identity. We have this identity of who we think we are. That's the job of the ego, is to create this false identity of who we think we are. And we're trying to create ourselves as a separate identity from everybody else, when in fact, we are all one. We are all part of the same existence. We are all coming from the same source. We are all connected energetically. Whether you look at it materialistically and say we all came from the same source from the Big Bang, we're all from the same material, or energetically we're all created from the same creator, and we're all just different aspects, different expressions of that creator. We're all one and the same. Remember that tapestry I was talking about in the very beginning? I felt like I was this one little thread of this gigantic tapestry that expanded everywhere. It had no beginning, had no end. I was just like one little tiny piece, but I was still a thread. We all are a little thread.
Does that thread have an identity? Did you feel like an individual or not?
No, I felt like I was a composite piece. I felt like I was sort of one of the whole. There was no me. There was no individual. It was just a neutral piece that was, I don't know really how to describe it, other than I was just a part of the whole.
Hmm. And you felt like that was your purpose?
Well, at the time, it wasn't so much as a purpose as much as it was a realization that I was part of this whole tapestry. I was part of everything in existence, and I was connected to everything. Because beforehand, if you remember, didn't believe in religion, didn't believe in God, didn't believe in anything. The only thing I could believe was what my eyes could see, my hands could touch. That was about it. But once I'm in this experience, I'm realizing that I'm connected to everything. I am part of everything. Everything is part of me, and there is way more than what I ever had experienced in the physical life, way beyond me. So that was like literally opening up my being to something far greater, because there is so much more than we can ever appreciate with our physical awareness.
Your story is really amazing, and thank you so much for answering all of my questions today. And you answered some of them in your book, Spirits Beside Us. So, could you talk about your book and also talk about what you're doing, where people can find you, all of that?
Sure. Yeah, the book Spirits Beside Us was just sort of started out as an explanation of some of the things that I was experiencing, and when I first began to write it, I wasn't really having any clue as to what I was writing or why I was writing. I knew I just had to kind of like get my keys and keyboard, fingers and keyboard, and start going. But next thing I knew, within 5 months, that the book was published. I'm like, what the hell? How'd that happen? It was like in 5 months, went from blank page to published. And as I showed the manuscript to one of my mentors, she goes, you do realize that over half of this book was automatically written by Spirit? I'm like, well, that would explain why it was written so quickly. And it's all about, my experience. It explains how we are spirit, just living material lives in the present, and how our consciousness goes on, to live on endlessly. It never dies. There is continuity of life. It also has a section on how you can develop your own connection with spirit, whether that's because you want to connect with your own loved ones, or because you want to be a greater service to humanity, or maybe you want to express healing of some kind. It kind of walks you through all these different processes. It kind of touches on the surface, but it kind of gives you a direction. And then the third section is all about some examples of the different readings that I had up to that point, and it kind of walks through a sampling of some of the more remarkable readings that Spirit had given to their sitters, and some of them were just life changing. So that's really what the book is about. And if people want to get in contact with me, by all means, I've got a couple of websites. I've got montclairmedium.com. Everything's there. Of course, I've got my podcast, Spirits Beside Us podcast. That's also, there's a website there, spiritsbesideus.com. That's the website. Well, if they want to email me, they can, write me at chris@montclairmedium.com. So, those are some of the main things. Plus I've got a school called Soul B School, where I teach all this and, help people kind of uncover their own spirituality, whether they want to raise their spirituality, whether they want to go down the mediumship route, whether they want to connect spirit, whether they want to create a mediumship business. There's all kinds of options available.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing and following your soul and being a light.
Well, yes, it's. I think you hit the nail on the head. It is. We've all got to be a light to each other. We all have to use the light that's within to illuminate the path for others. That's really why we're here. And the more light that's within us, the more we can help other people. And that's kind of our main purpose.
Thank you so much for being here today and taking the time out of your day to let me ask you these questions.
Well, Lily, it was quite a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.